Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Sebelius, for being here today. We appreciate your testimony. You testified, I think, in your opening statement that QSSI had been hired to do the end-to-end organization and coordination of the web and the hub. Is that correct? The website and the hub?
They have taken on a new role in the last couple of weeks of organizing the fixes that are going in. They did, Senator, they were the contractor for the hub.
Yeah. Are you aware that in June of this year, the Inspector General issued a report finding QSSI guilty of violating CMS requirements on security that exposed 6 million Medicare beneficiaries prior to that information?
I am aware of that, sir. My understanding is they basically inherited a contract from another contractor. They did not have initially the various provisions in place. They immediately fixed it in the transition, and they did self-report that to us.
Is there in there, I understand they have a cost-plus contract now to do what they're doing. Is there a provision in that contract for them to correct that and make sure it doesn't happen again?
Oh, that was corrected immediately, and absolutely there is a provision to make sure that they comply with all the CMS requirements.
This whole subject of navigators and information security is going to be the kind of the vein of my questions. I had sent a letter along with some other members of the committee on the 20th of June asking for the requirements you were putting in to protect secure information. Haven't received an answer yet. Understanding you've been very busy, I respect that, so I'm going to use my time now to ask a couple of key questions. What are you doing to ensure the navigators protect the private information they're exposed to of American citizens?
Sir, the navigators must go through a minimum of 20 hours of training. A significant portion focuses on privacy and security issues. As you know, in this new law, there is no personal health information ever collected or needed, so they don't have access to that, unlike an insurance agent today in this market who collects financial and
Can I interrupt right there? Excuse me for interrupting, but I want to be sure to get to the... Under Section 6103 of the IRS Code, there are a number of prohibitions for personal information being used, and to estimate the subsidy somebody's going to get under the Obamacare law, you'd have to know their income on their tax return previously. Are the navigators going to be able to use that information in order to make that estimate?
If a consumer chooses, yes, to share that information, they can give the consumer the information about what they'd qualify for.
Then I want to get to this point. The law prohibits insurance agents from being navigators unless they quit their job and become a navigator fully. It also has a medical loss ratio prohibition that basically allows insurance agents not to be paid a commission for selling health care. The navigators were put in to be the connection to the American people to the Obamacare law. In the state of Georgia, my state has been so concerned about the risk on information that they have made it a requirement that every navigator have a criminal background check. In reference to a question that was asked by somebody previously, don't you think there should be a similar requirement nationwide by your department to see to it no navigator gets private information unless they've had a background check?
Well, sir, first of all, there are probably 45,000 agents and brokers who have been trained on the Affordable Care Act and are very much part of the process of reaching out to individuals. Secondly, we did write the requirements for the navigators that very much mirror what many states have in place for licensed insurance agents, and then added a provision that states could indeed add additional requirements. Some have chosen to and some have not.
Would you object to a statute that would require them to have background checks?
At this point, I think if that's the will of Congress, we'd certainly take a look at that.
Well, I don't have enough time for my last point, so I want to shift over to one other thing. My state is known for the capital city of Atlanta and probably the vacation city of Savannah, with the port of Savannah, but we are also a very rural state, an agrarian state. And in our state, in a recent article in the New York Times, was quoted, the rates in rural Georgia, particularly southeast Georgia, are going up astronomically and disproportionate to rate increases in other parts of the state. Is rural America getting hit disproportionately hard because of the effects of the Affordable Care Act on its premium rates?
Senator, I was the governor of a very rural state, and I can tell you that rural America has always paid a higher price for health care than urban America. The competition is less. Often it's a monopoly market, and I don't think that that has changed enough yet with the Affordable Care Act, but I think new competition in most markets in the country will begin to change that, particularly in this individual market where often people had no choice and no competition.
I know my time's up, so I'll yield back on that and has a follow-up question later. Thank you for your testimony.
Okay, thank you, Senator Portman.